Today, we've got the updated U.S. Senate prediction for April. The other day, I did a tier ranking for the margins, but this is the official prediction. Now, I last did this a couple of months ago, and I've got a couple of shifts toward the Dems. But if you're familiar with this channel, you know I don't get too crazy this far out. And also keep in mind, Dems are looking to flip 4 seats if they want to gain outright control. That's including 2 independents. And the national environment is expected to be blue. We've still got time, but it doesn't look like it's going to be red anytime soon. So we're still way before a bunch of the primaries, but let's get into the map. Let's start as always with the safe states. These should be over 10% margins or not competitive. So I'm not going to talk about them individually. But for example, in New Mexico, Republicans were unable to actually field a candidate. Now they might still make the ballot through a write-in process, but at this point, that's got to go safe. Now, on the Republican side, there's always a couple of fringe scenarios, such as in Idaho, you've got an independent, Todd Achilles. Maybe he makes it interesting, similar to Dan Osborne in Nebraska. But I'm not going to bank on that yet. We've got to wait and see what happens. Also in Kansas, something like Sharice Davids could jump into the race. That could make it more competitive and get it under 10. But for the most part, these are pretty much completely off the table for both sides. Once we've got the safe states out of the way, we could go down to the likely states. These would be between 5 and 10 point margins, or are semi-competitive. Now let's start with the Dems. I've got 2 states. First is Minnesota. Yeah, it's an open seat in a blue state in a blue-leaning year. That's pretty much all you need to know. Now, if the Republicans had a super strong candidate, the Dems had a weak one, maybe this gets interesting. But right now, it doesn't look like the case at all. So this is going to be likely. The other likely state I've got is in the Northeast. It's New Hampshire. Now, this one is borderline late likely. But again, in a blue-leaning year, in this blue-leaning state federally, it's hard for me to think Republicans are going to make this truly competitive. I think Sununu is a better candidate than Brown. But either way, I think Chris Pappas is fairly likely to be the next senator here. But again, we'll see what happens. Now, the likely states for the Republicans. First, we've got Montana. This one is going from safe down to likely because Steve Daines abruptly decided he's not running for re-election. It happened in an underhanded way, but because of that, we've got to put this at likely. Next, in Nebraska. This is the Ricketts-Osborne race. And Osborne 2.0 is running against a stronger candidate. So out of caution, I'm putting this at likely. Not safe and not all the way at leans either, as some of the internal Osborne polling might suggest. Next, it's Texas. Now, this one is borderline lean likely. I guess I want to see what happens with the results of the runoff. If it's Paxton, I would go to leans. If it's Cornyn, I might keep it at likely. So this is just kind of a wait-and-see situation. Next, in Iowa. This is an open seat. I think the likely candidate here for the Republicans is decent. It's Ashley Hinson. Dems have a primary. Either way, this is borderline lean likely, but it's going to be on the other side. Finally, it's Florida. This one is closer to safe than it is going down to leans. Remember here in the blue wave of 18, Republicans actually flipped the Senate seat here and knocked off Bill Nelson. The state has only gotten way redder since, but I'm still going to keep it at likely out of caution. Now we've got the competitive states. Lean are under 5%, tilt are 1% or less. Let's go through them one at a time. We'll start in the West. We've got Alaska. This could turn into a high-profile race between Sullivan, the incumbent, and Peltola, the likely challenger. Yeah, there's ranked choice voting. Yeah, there's a top 4 primary. And yeah, I did see the polling that showed Peltola even in the lead. So Sullivan can't take the normal lean of this state for granted. In the end, Peltola could win it. The state did go blue in 2008. For now, I think it's likely to be competitive, but I think that Sullivan, in the end, would eventually hold on by at least a point or 2, so I'm going to keep it at leans. Next, it's Michigan. This one we've talked about a bunch. It looks like it's Rogers for the Republicans, and it's an open primary for the Dems. Unless it's Abdul El-Sayed, I think this one is fairly likely to go toward the Dems. Not by a ton, but at least by a couple of points. So that's why this is lean D. Southeast, we've got Ohio. Here's the Husted-Brown matchup for this special election. This is another one that could be competitive. A lot of times you can't go by the polling far out. If you did, Larry Hogan would be the senator in Maryland. But I don't think Republicans have this totally in the bag. It should be close, very likely to be within single digits. But Brown did just take a loss to Bernie Moreno. In this race, I think in the end, it's more likely that Husted ends up winning by at least a couple of points. So this is kind of the inverse of Michigan. It's going to go lean red. Now in the northeast corner, it's Maine. Now this is a pure toss-up. We know it's Susan Collins against either Plattner or Mills. I think she could absolutely go down here. We know how the polling underestimated her 6 years ago. For right now, I'm going to leave this rating alone because I want to see what happens, so it's going to stay as a tilt for Collins. Next, in North Carolina. This one I've had at tilt D for Cooper against probably Michael Rodley. And this I'm going to bump it up another point. It's going to go from tilt to lean for Cooper, the Democrat. Finally, in Georgia. Without Brian Kemp in there, I don't know what Republicans are going to be able to do here. Meanwhile, John Ossoff has a distinct advantage here. The trend of the state, the national environment, and his incumbency. That's easy to rate this as lean D. That comes out to 52 seats for the Republicans, 48 for the Dems. They're extremely close in Maine. Then they're right behind in Alaska, maybe Ohio or Iowa. If it's a blue tsunami, you could be looking at Texas or even Nebraska. Anyway, if the election were held right now, I think Dems would win in Maine. They could pull it out in Alaska. But because it's not about today, it's about November. I do think Republicans are going to get it together at least a little bit, and they're not going to get totally wiped out. But real quick, right at the end here, I'm actually going to make one more change. I'm going to make Maine a tilt for the Dems. I do think there's enough there to make Collins the slight underdog. But anything could happen. We'll see what happens with these primaries in the spring and the summer. For now, let me know in the comments, how does your Senate prediction look for the month of April? You probably have North Carolina flipping blue, but what about the other toss-ups? Is there any chance Republicans flip a seat here? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.